Hey, and what is up, guys? Storm here with another review. Today we're going to be talking about Pokemon Conquest. So Pokemon Conquest was a new third-party addition to the Pokemon series created in 2012, co-created by Nintendo and Tecmo Koei. Basically, it's a crossover of Pokemon and a game called Nobunaga's Ambition, which is also based on a samurai series in Japan, but kind of has a Fire Emblem feel to it, which is really cool. It kind of gives a different vibe to the Pokemon series, more of an adult, kind of themed game where you are a warlord in a new country. You've just become the warlord, and you are starting to recruit people into your army, and you're training to become the warlord that holds the most kingdoms, if not all the kingdoms. And basically, you run through this entire game, and you start with an Eevee, which is really neat because it kind of shows the choice that you have in the game, which is probably one of the most open-choiced Pokemon games there has been in the series so far, because really everything is kind of CPU-based. You get to decide where you raid, when you raid, who's in your army, how to train, how to dedicate your warriors' times. But I'm getting ahead of myself here, so we're going to back up. So you open up and into this historical Japanese-looking country with old samurai gear and swords, and everybody looks awesome. I really did like the character designs on everybody. But you open up as the new warlord of a country, and you're in a kingdom called Ransai, which apparently does have some manga background in the Pokemon community, but is not well known throughout the community just because it was a third-party game. It's kind of like the Mystery Dungeon series, or Pokemon Rumble, Pokemon Quest, like things that weren't very popular throughout the community because they weren't mainline games, and people didn't veer too far off that path. But the people who did, I think the reviews for Pokemon Conquest came back very, very positive. Most of them were like 4.8 out of 5s, 9 out of 10s. You know, people really did receive this game very well. And it's surprising that they haven't tried to do a remake of this yet. They haven't tried to even reach out to do a sequel, which actually gives a lot of possibility for the Nintendo Switch here coming up, and just to see the popularity of Pokemon games after Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee come out. But that's a whole nother topic that we'll discuss in a later episode. But moving into a little bit of the facts of Pokemon Conquest. So, Pokemon Conquest was created with 5th generation Pokemon in it, which was super, super neat because it was still in the DS. So you got Pokemon Black and White Pokemon getting to be able to play in this game that felt kind of like Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, but instead of being a Pokemon, you were actually this warlord. So it really gave it kind of more of a PG-13 feel instead of the E for everyone that Game Freak tends to stick to with the Pokemon series. The historic aspect of it, they kind of did a cross between historic and more up-to-date modern, because you go through it and it's just beautiful scenery of countryside and ponds and fields and valleys and caves, and everything just looks beautiful. But some of the warriors have new age type items on, like some of the warriors have golf visors or tennis visors on. Some of them have glasses, but they do try to stick to that historical feel, which gives it kind of a really nice vibe to it, because you actually get to see some of the history. There's theories on this game that Pokemon Conquest was actually based on the Great Pokemon War. Granted, that is a little too early in history for it to actually be the Pokemon War, because if it's going to match up with Ash Ketchum, or even just Red and Blue in their time, and Lieutenant Surge being in there, this is way too early, but it does show that there could have been more than one Pokemon War. I have not read the manga adaptation to Pokemon Conquest, but I hear there actually is one, and it is official. That is something I'm going to look into. I will see if I can find anything to link up into the description of this. But another fun thing about Pokemon Conquest is that not your Pokemon aren't the only thing that level up. Like, you as a warrior will level up yourself. So both Pokemon and warriors have levels and abilities, but the levels are kind of wonky in this game. So they did it something called link value instead. So each Pokemon and warrior has their own link percentage, So the way that they were really framing this was your friendship, pretty much, like the extent to which you could actually match up with your Pokemon's vibe and kind of just play with it. So the max was 100%, you could find that perfect partner, but each warrior had a really specific one. There's gameplay guides to show which ones go with who, but it gave you so many choices because you could go link with other Pokemon, and you could have 6 warriors, just like 6 Pokemon in normal games, but you could have 6 warriors running through this kingdom conquest with you. And just seeing the fact that there was so much customability in this game really made it kind of a true RPG in a sense. That wasn't, it was pre-open world era for Pokemon, and really just kind of gave a great vibe to it because you didn't walk around, you didn't get to catch Pokemon, you just went through and there was areas you could raid, and within kingdoms there were other areas where you could find Pokemon, recruit people, find items, and it just got such a good feeling to it. But back to linking, the linking really showed that it wasn't just about finding the strongest Pokemon right away and then just abusing the level system to get it super high and then use it. Each Pokemon, you had to find something that was right for your character and right for the characters that were in your army. And so these armies, basically, you can recruit more than the 6 that you would have in your party, because as you go along, each kingdom that you conquer becomes under your control. But if it's open, or even just weak, opposing kingdoms could actually come in and raid you and steal your kingdoms back. So you had to post up some people that you had left there. And then from there, it wasn't one of those games that you had to constantly go back to like Sims and you're like, man, I have to check on everybody and make sure that, no one's stuck or dead or getting attacked. You can actually set up prerequisites for each kingdom, like this kingdom's going to train so you guys get stronger, this one's going to develop so you find items, or this one is going to recruit so you find more army members. And that just was such a cool concept because it gave you the complete feel of an actual ruler. Instead of babying you through, you had to make decisions, you had to think about where you needed to have dedicated training people, where you needed to find items, where you needed to recruit if you were weak, and you could move along and just kind of make this wall of kingdoms because they couldn't go past a certain point. So kingdoms had to touch each other for you to be able to actually raid. So you could just make this huge wall because you basically journey north the entire time. So as long as you just made this wall of people, you didn't really need to backfill any spots, but you could if you wanted to, because there was the long game play of I'm going to send some people back. There's a guy with a Magikarp. And, of course, you're not going to take it along because the only move it knew was Splash, and it wasn't going to do any damage. It didn't learn Tackle until it evolved. Gyarados is one of the strongest Pokemon in that game, so you had to really sit on your hands with that because you couldn't raid a kingdom because they actually made it to the point where levels and competitiveness, every time you went into a kingdom, something could happen. So the battlefields in these kingdoms are kind of set up like Fire Emblem, and kind of like Mystery Dungeon. You got to move a certain amount of steps, and then your moves would hit a certain distance. So you had to think through your setups because each battlefield was different. It had different traps, it had different items, it had flags that you might have to capture. Like one of them is a huge kind of sumo wrestling boxing ring, and you have to just go up and hold the 4 corners and then basically beat everybody out. And it's just crazy because you could fall off if you got hit, and you had to walk all the way back around. Like, it was just crazy because you had to think on your feet about how to move people and how they were going to move towards you. Because the CPU did a very good job of being unpredictable in most scenarios, which gave it a very difficult challenge, but enough that it kept it interesting. No matter what battle was happening, even if you had to go back and replay something, it wouldn't be the same battle. No matter how you move, it's not always the same battle, so you couldn't go just hacks it up knowing what they were going to do. You actually had to think, which made it an incredible game in my opinion, but very, very undermarketed. But I don't know, it was just such a great game. I honestly think if you haven't played it and you're looking for something new to tide over the time until you can get Pokemon on the Switch, I think you have just enough time to find an emulator or find it for your DS that you should go out, find it, play it. Let me know your thoughts. Of course, you can already tell that I'm a little bit biased. I thought it was a great game. It gave the adult feel to Pokemon that I think most fans were looking for, and I think that it gave us all the competitive really strategic setup that we wanted instead of just switching in and out. It actually gave it a humanistic feel to it that you could actually do it. In short, Pokemon Conquest, probably 8.5 or 9 out of 10. Great game, heavily recommend, especially if you're a Pokemon fan, especially if you're a Fire Emblem fan, just getting into the Pokemon series. Great way to get into it. But for this time, this was the Storm review. My name's Storm. I will catch you guys next time. Peace.